Hey, what's up guys? VFX Bro here, and today you're in for a special treat. I'm going to be providing you with an exclusive wedding video training on motion tracking in After Effects and then adding in special titles. So for several years now I've been shooting weddings, and when I make my wedding highlight videos, I like to add in visual effects, and that takes form in the place of these cool animated title sequences. They're usually about 4 to 5 seconds long, and this includes the name of the bride and the groom, motion tracked and animated into a real life shot. So I'm going to take you here through the entire process. I want to note that this tutorial is actually a free tutorial out of a much larger training series that I'm going to be launching on my new website, makeweddingvideos.com. A lot of you have been asking over the years how I make a living, and I actually make the majority of my income through making these wedding videos. And a lot of you have shown interest in making wedding videos yourself. So over the last year, I've developed this extensive training course that takes you through the entire process of teaching you how to create your own wedding business, how to shoot the wedding, and even how to do the editing. And this tutorial right here is a sample tutorial in the editing portion of this training. So if you want to check out the training, feel free to do so on makeweddingvideos.com. But for now, let's go ahead and get into this free tutorial on motion tracking and animating here in After Effects. Okay, let's look here at how we add visual effects and titles into our highlight videos. And so here I have a shot that I chose from the highlight video, and it's very important that you're conscious of the factors included in a shot when choosing one for the visual effects. Almost every time I want to choose a shot that's wide, because wider shots show more information. There's usually less camera shake, and it's a lot easier to track. Also, they usually look more epic, and there's a lot more empty space that we can use to add in our title. So here we have an ending shot that I want to use for the highlight video. And so I'm going to simply drag this shot here in After Effects into a new composition. And now we've created a composition with the same settings. And the first thing that we're going to do, this is only available in After Effects CS6 and above, but I'm going to go here into motion tracking and simply hit track camera. So here we can see tons of information that's been gathered. The first thing that you want to do is look for false positives when in your motion tracking. And false positives are points that we can see that definitely aren't part of the still world that we're tracking. And so we can see the bride and groom running, and they're obviously moving, and the points on them are going to be giving us false tracking information because it's moving and it's not stationary, and the computer is expecting all of the points that we have included in this camera solve to be stationary. So we can track through this. We can see we still have points here later on in our track that are false positives, and we're just going to continue through this and select these shots and hit delete so that they're no longer included in our solve. And there's several ways to get false positives included in your footage. For example, if you have items that are blowing in the wind, or if you have reflections from water or windows, or intersections between close and far away objects that aren't accurate, that aren't representative of a real point in the world, then those are all going to give you false positives. The great thing about these shots is that we're adding in titles, usually not that aren't attached to actual things. And so for a shot like this, I wouldn't attach my title to the ground because it doesn't look very good there. Most of the time, the shots will look cool when our titles are floating in air. And since they're floating in air, it's a lot easier to get away with a bad track because there's nothing directly attached to our title that's going to give the viewer any idea that the track isn't perfect. And so keep that in mind when you're creating these titles and going through the process of comping them in. So here, this looks pretty good. We have a few points on the bride and groom that still haven't been deleted, but it's not a huge deal. So now that we've deleted most of the false positives, we can go here and select create. We want to select points that are most close to where we want to add in our title. So for this shot, I think that I want to add in a title right here because there's a lot of dead space here and there's a nice white sky that's going to allow for a contrasted background. So we've got a lot of space there. So I probably want to make the title right above this point on the ground here. So I'm going to drag right here where we see we have a lot of information. And then I'm going to simply select 3 points that are all on the same plane, and that looks really good right there. And then the reason this looks good is because these points are all on the ground, and if I look at the circle that's in between them all, this circle looks like it would be on the ground based on the angle that we see in the circle. So I right click on this and hit create text plus camera. So we have text down there now, and then I'm going to drag it into place. So this is where it would be if it were directly on the ground. But I don't want it on the ground. I want it in the sky. So I'm just going to simply drag it up. So I hold down shift, I can move it a lot more. I'm going to move it up into the sky. And so now if I play through this, the text looks as though it was motion tracked into there. And we can see that this was shot on a very wide angle lens, and there's distortion on the side. And even as our real camera distorts on the side, we can also see the text distorting and becoming larger, which is awesome. And so the text has been placed in there, and I'm going to now change it to Adam plus Lauren so that I can see what it will look like. I can even adjust the color to make it brighter. I'm going to make it pure white, and then I'm going to adjust the font to find a font that I like. Let's try this fancy font. So there we have, it says Adam plus Lauren. And I'm going to move it over to the left so that it's centered here on this row of grapes. And I'm going to place it a little bit higher. So that looks really good right there. And now we have this title add in. We could leave it like this. This is pretty simple. But I want to add some animation to it. Now I have a full training series on advanced animations in shape layers using After Effects on vfxpro.com, which you can check out. I'm going to show you some of the most commonly used effects that I add to my titles here in After Effects. So I can go create shapes from text, and I have this here now, and I can go add, wiggle transform, and then I turn this off. And you may not be understanding why I'm doing this. I'm not going to get into it here in this series. If you want to learn why I'm doing it, you can check out my Shape Layers training, and it's an hour and a half. But here are the results that we can get. I'm going to keyframe this position, move close to the end right about here, and then bring this back down to 0. And then I'm going to ease this position in here, select my graph editor, and then just drag this out. So here we can see all of these layers animating in. So we've added a very simple animation quickly and easily. The next step could be to add in some illustrative animations, and I have a really cool free pack that you can download on vfxpro.com, and it's called the Fresh Effects free download pack. And so you simply go to vfxpro.com and then hit the download button, and then you're going to receive a free download. Simply click on it. Here's the download pack. I'm going to drag it into After Effects. And now if I click on this, we have all of these different designs that can be used for our animation. And so one that I usually like to use is this half heart here. And I hit Command C, go into this composition here, and paste it by hitting Command V. And I have this heart, and I'm going to make it into a 3D layer. The reason this is only visible is because it's been soloed out here, and that's how it defaults when we paste it into our original composition. I'm going to make it a 3D layer and then hold down Shift and drag it to either of these layers that are the titles so that it's going to move it there. And now I can unsolo it, and we have this half heart here. And as we play through, if I select, we can see that we have this little animation happening. So there's our heart animating. And it happens kind of fast, but we can move this anywhere that we want. We can move it in front of this. And we can move it in front of the heart. We can make it bigger. And then we could even copy it and rotate it so that it makes a full heart. Offset it a little bit so that it doesn't look identical. We can see where they start, which should be over this way a bit. We can select both of them. They're a little bit too red for my taste. I'm going to make them a lighter color. And now we have that heart. Maybe that's too big. Maybe we just want the heart to come around the plus sign. So we'll make them a lot smaller here. Much smaller. So that it just comes in between the plus and the two words. That looks good. And then we're going to drag them so they don't come in until later. And so we have a cool little animation. We could even add a blend mode so that it pops a little bit more. And then lastly, we're going to work on the compositing. Most of the time, you're going to want to add a little bit of a fast blur to all of the elements because the real footage is a little bit blurry. So let's try 2. Make sure that we add it to the correct layer. And now we can see that the footage is blurred a little bit. And as well, not only is the footage blurred, but our title is blurred as well. That might be a little bit too much. We can bring it down to 1 and then blur these half hearts as well. We can copy that fast blur onto both of these layers. And so there we have that heart. And then the last thing to do is add motion blur. We're going to hit Command A, select everything, add the motion blur. So as these original titles move in, we can see that these letters that are moving faster are having a little bit of motion blur added onto them. There's always things that we can add, but that looks pretty good and it's nice and simple, clean. And then at this point, we just need to export it back into our editing program. Add to render queue. Use the same settings that you have for your original composition, which I suggest Apple ProRes 422. Hit OK, and then select an output path. Ideally, it's the same folder that you have all of your converted footage in, and then simply hit the render button. And that is how we achieve visual effects here in After Effects for wedding highlight videos. So after we've exported the visual effects shot out of After Effects, we can import it here into our editing program, and then we simply drag it on top of wherever it is we're going to be replacing it. So making sure to delete any audio layers. And here is the shot that we have. So I take this shot, which is the VFX finished shot, turn off frame blending and ripple sequence. And now I can extend this all the way out to its original length. And I had a crossfaded added here, so I'm going to just simply replace that shot and add in the crossfade. There we go.